This was Barry Sullivan's first film for Monogram after spending the early years of his career at Paramount. That may seem like a come down in the Hollywood hierarchy, but Sullivan preferred being the big fish in a small pond over the typical supporting roles he'd had at Paramount. After Suspense, Sullivan was first in line for every male lead at Monogram. He was even set to star in Gun Crazy before director Joseph Lewis cast John Dahl. About his co-star in Suspense, Sullivan remarked candidly, if ungallantly, "I always had a fondness for Belita because she didn't know what the fudge was happening. She was a great skater, but acting and particularly filmmaking were totally foreign to her." Belita was teamed with Sullivan again the following year in The Gangster, an archly theatrical study of a small-time hood in which Sullivan gave his best performance to date, and Belita, frankly, was wasted. He'd have co-starred with her again in 1948's The Hunted if Sullivan hadn't been lured to MGM, which became his home studio. He made a number of noirs there: Tension, Cause for Alarm, No Questions Asked, Jeopardy, and if you're so inclined, The Bad and the Beautiful. Although he never attained genuine star status, Sullivan had a long and sturdy career in movies and TV, one that lasted into the 1980s. Belita's skating may not seem spectacular today, as skaters have gotten progressively more agile and athletic, but at the time, this was pretty hot stuff, especially her Ring of Swords routine. The contraption was made of aluminum, and the knives were really hard rubber. According to Belita, she refused to rehearse it, admitting she was scared. "If I was going to be cut to pieces," she said, "it had better be on film." She asked the producers for danger pay, but fat chance of that with the King brothers in charge. She nailed it on the very first try, but refused to do a second take, fearful she might be pushing her luck. I note that Belita augmented her salary by making wagers with the crew, especially when it came to her skating routines. She'd bet whoever was game that she could do the toughest stunts in one take, and most of the time she did. Director Frank Tuttle brought lots of panache to this picture, aided immeasurably by the cinematography of Carl Struess, who'd begun his career as a highly respected photographer in the early part of the century. Although he photographed such classics as F.W. Murnau's Sunrise, the 1931 version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the stunning Story of Temple Drake, Struess spent most of his career as a freelancer, bringing high style to B films, although he did shoot The Great Dictator and Limelight for Charlie Chaplin. Co-star Albert Dekker was practically a fixture in film noir, having made excellent B examples of the form like Among the Living and The Pretender, and top-shelf stuff like The Killers and Kiss Me Deadly. Later, he'd unite with a cadre of actors from this era: William Holden, Robert Ryan, Edmund O'Brien, and Ernest Borgnine, as part of the ensemble Sam Peckinpah brought together for The Wild Bunch in 1969. After making that film, Dekker suffered one of the more bizarre deaths in Hollywood history. To this day, some people believe he was murdered in his bathtub, although the LA Medical Examiner called it suicide. I will not go into detail. Let me leave you instead with an upbeat finish. After shooting The Man on the Eiffel Tower in Paris in 1949, Belita became an acting protege of co-star Charles Laughton, shunning Hollywood to perform in his stage revivals of The Cherry Orchard and Twelfth Night. Her only film work after that was when Gene Kelly hired her for one spectacular dance number as the femme fatale in his 1956 film Invitation to the Dance. That same year, she hung up the skates for good. She retired to England, married Irish actor James Berwick, and opened a gardening center in London. She was happy to watch her fame disappear. Belita remained with Berwick until his death in 2000, then spent her remaining years living alone in the south of France. "I have a lovely time doing absolutely nothing," she said in a rare interview shortly before her death in 2005. Now, before signing off, I want to start the new year with a shout out to a loyal Noir Alley viewer, actress Eleanor Donahue, who many of you will remember as Princess on Father Knows Best, as well as many other roles in a wonderfully long career. Ms. Donahue was kind enough to send me this tie, which comes with a little secret inside. A very cute cheesecake shot of the actress. Thanks a million, Princess. Next week, I'll be back with another noir from 1946, starring Susan Hayward. Be here for Deadline at Dawn. Until then, I'll see you in the shadows.